Hey, what's going on? Charles Austin here, and let's be fit forever. So, today I wanted to do part two of my series on dairy. Dairy is death, right? Wanted to do part two. I've already provided a link to part one where we did our introduction to this topic. So, check that out. I have a link to that video in the comments, in the video description below. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about dairy and the link to inflammation. All right. But before we jump into that, as always, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you turn those notifications on so that you're always up to date and notified each and every single time I make a new stream here on the channel. All right. So, as always, I don't like to waste your time. Let's dive right on in here on dairy and inflammation here. All right. So, as it says right here, let's go ahead and start out by defining what is inflammation, right? Because I think this is something that a lot of people hear about. They hear it's bad. They hear, certain things may or may not cause it. But what is inflammation? Okay. So you want to think of it like it says here, and some of this stuff I'm going to read verbatim because it's really well explained, right? But it's kind of like the body's response to protect itself against harm, right? So there's a couple of types. You have acute inflammation. You also have chronic inflammation, right? Now, the one that you're probably more familiar with, something that may be a little bit more common, uh, is the acute. And this is basically anytime you sustain like a basic injury, as it says here, if you cut your, you cut your finger, you cut yourself, or if you bang your knee, you bang something, right? Those are examples of acute inflammation. And what happens is when you have that cut, your body is sending blood to that area. It's rushing to that area because it's trying to solve the problem. The same thing goes for if you have a bruise. You're going to have inflammation in the area because again, your body is sending nutrients and white blood cells and all these different things to the area because we want to fix the problem, right? So there's another example as well is if you have an infection, right? So if you've ever been sick, like if you get the flu, you get COVID, you get pneumonia, whatever, your body's going to have an inflammation response because, again, it needs to increase the activity of those white blood cells and the nutrients so that you can actually heal and fight the issue. Okay? So, that's an example of acute, right? The other type of inflammation is kind of what we're going to talk about today when it comes to dairy, right? Chronic inflammation is something that whenever you hear this term chronic, it's something that's ongoing. It's something that doesn't necessarily stop right away. It goes on for a while, right? So chronic inflammation can occur as a response to other unwanted substances. That's going to be the theme kind of for the day. I'm going to pause it right there. Unwanted substances. Okay, let's make sure we let those words kind of marinate in our minds a little bit. Unwanted substances, right? So unwanted substances in the body, such as cigarette smoke, all right, excess of fat. I wonder what we can put in our bodies that starts with the letter D that has an excess of fat. Okay. And so also inside our arteries, inflammation can add to the buildup of fatty cholesterol plaque. This is what clogs our arteries. I also did a video on what is cholesterol. So feel free to check that out in the chronic disease playlist section on my channel, right? So your body is going to perceive this plaque as abnormal and foreign, so it attempts to fight it as well. So again, these are examples of chronic inflammation. Okay, a very good example again is the buildup of too much fat and plaque in our blood vessels. Okay, where did it go? Oh, is it on the next page? Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's on the next page. So, why is it dangerous? Right. So, why is this thing called inflammation something that I should be concerned with? Why is it something to worry about? Well, basically, you had a Q&A here, and as you can see here, this is who was part of this conversation, right? So the question goes, I've heard a lot recently about inflammation being a health risk, but I'm not sure I really understand what it is. Can you explain, right? Well, they kind of go in. We kind of already talked about what inflammation is, right? Let's see. Yes, all right. So again, they go on to talk about when you can have an inflammation response, right? So the same response occurs in other parts of your body when you encounter a virus or infection, but sometimes this immune response occurs when it shouldn't. Okay, it can be triggered, for example, when you're exposed to toxins, all right, and other causes such as chronic stress, obesity, and also autoimmune disorders. Okay, so in these cases, instead of moving in, healing the problem, and returning to normal, the inflammation persists over time. That's the issue that we don't want to have with chronic inflammation. We don't want inflammation that persists. All right, if you cut yourself, if you're infected with an illness, all right, you bang your head or something like that, you want the inflammation to come, do its job, and then leave and leave you better than you came before, right? So it's the chronic state of inflammation that can lead to numerous health problems, including heart disease, arthritis, depression, Alzheimer's disease, and even cancer. Okay, so these are the issues that we're talking about when we're talking about inflammation, chronic inflammation. Okay, and as it goes on to say here, to combat this damaging chronic inflammation, you got to make sure you're choosing the right foods and avoiding those that trigger chronic inflammation. All right, um, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so let's get into how we learn about uh, dairy and inflammation. Right. So as you see here, I wanted to start here, and I'm just gonna go over some stuff, and I'm gonna tell you exactly where I'm going with this real quick. But here's the question here: does dairy cause inflammation? Okay. So, as you can see, this is who answered the question right over here. And as it goes on here, a study published in the Nutritional Epidemiology that ranked foods based on their inflammatory potential indicated that dairy foods, fruits and vegetables, especially dark leafy greens and deep orange vegetables, tend to be anti-inflammatory. Okay, sounds good. So that means we should eat food right along with, we should put dairy right along with fruits and vegetables and dark leafy greens, right? Because they're equal. Okay. These foods are abundant in the dietary guidelines, recommended healthy eating patterns, right? So as it goes on to say here, when it comes to dairy specifically, a systematic review in this journal. Now, this is where we pause. So look at the title. Evidence that dairy doesn't cause inflammation, right? Look at the title. All right. But we got to look at what the website is. Okay. And we also need to look at who funded this research. Okay. Um, so if you see here, it says that it's been funded by the National Dairy Council. Now you got to ask yourself, if this study was funded by the National Dairy Council, I'm pretty sure there's a certain result they're looking for when they're conducting this study. Okay, there's no way that you're going to have them publish a study that puts dairy in a negative light. So again, yeah, it's very easy to find information that supports dairy as an anti-inflammation building food or even a healthy food, right? But it depends on who's doing the study. Like when I click this here, right? The person who wrote this story here, Vice President of Nutrition Research at the National Dairy Council. So if you ask yourself, does this person have any ulterior motives or any conflict of interest? You be the judge on that. Okay. So moving on, and I just find it comical. If this person has a PhD in nutritional sciences, however, he works for the National Dairy Council. Okay, you draw your own conclusions. All right, so I wanted to start there and say how easy it is for you to Google topics related to this and find information that has been skewed towards the favor of this industry, right? So let's talk about some stuff here real quick, right? Um, does dairy cause inflammation? All right, so we're going to get to the nitty gritty and explain how this works, and then we'll let y'all go. Like I say, we'll do a Q&A at the end, um, and we'll let y'all go. All right, but does dairy cause inflammation, right? So if you have a dairy allergy, okay, or if you're lactose intolerant. Now, before we go on here, um, I'll continue to read here and then we'll move on for just a second. All right, but if you have a dairy allergy or if you're lactose intolerant, if there's any irritable bowel syndrome, gluten intolerance, stuff like that, okay, there's plenty of evidence that shows that dairy can promote an inflammatory response when consumed, right? There's also positive links between milk consumption and the occurrence of acne, okay? Now, the reason why I wanted to pause on this part here is this information can be misleading, right? So you look at this and you say, well, it says if I have a dairy allergy or lactose intolerant. Well, I don't have any of that, right? Well, let's see, right? How common is lactose intolerance, right? Well, about 68% of the world's population, and this number has been reported to be as high as 75%. All right, but we'll just meet it in the middle. We'll say 70%. 70% of the world's population is lactose intolerant. Okay, so that's over 2/3 of everybody on planet Earth is lactose intolerant. So what does that tell you? If we go back here, if we go back here, this says 2/3 of the entire population of humans on planet Earth have inflammation caused from dairy. Okay? That's what we're saying here. All right? And we haven't even gotten into dairy allergies. All right? Excuse me. So, let's see. Was this the one? And here, this one says 65% of the human population. So there's a range there, 65 to 75%, right? Of folks that are actually lactose intolerant. So if you're lactose intolerant, you're going to have an issue with processing dairy, okay? Let's see here. Oh, here it is. No, not this one. Let me go to the next one, all right? So here we go where we're talking about the link between dairy and inflammation. And this one kind of talks a little bit about the issues that children have, right? So they start off by talking about babies who suffer from chronic infections. They start to begin displaying those symptoms by about the age 1, right? And one of the things they do is they give them antibiotics to cure the infection, but that destroys some of the bacteria and the healthy stuff that's in our stomachs to help digest food, right? So why the heck are some children more prone to ear infections, right? Well, it may be this inflammation and these allergens that we have to dairy, right? So when it comes to recurrent ailments and symptoms, allergies are probably or could be one of the roots of the problem, right? So one of the most common food allergies is milk, okay? This is about 98% of food allergy cases. So we've already said that 2/3 of people on planet Earth have lactose intolerance, which means they can't process the milk. And now they're having that inflammatory response because your body is seeing it as something that's foreign. And now we're talking about food allergies. So these are two reasons why you're going to see an immune response associated with consuming dairy, right? So again, it goes on to talk about the issues that children have, colic, rashes, gas, bloating, all these different things, right? Frequent colds, chronic ear infections, throat infections, and later in life, here's the big one, asthma. We're going to finish up today talking about asthma here in just a few minutes. But so if you're somebody who's asthmatic, you want to get rid of that dairy like immediately, right? So adults who develop asthma, strep throat, frequent headaches, gallbladder issues, or diverticulitis, right, later in life, typically dealt with chronic ear infections as children. So we're trying to draw the link here between having an issue with processing these dairy products as a child and then coming over to adulthood. Now you're dealing with these different types of infections and asthma. And now we're discovering there's a link between, hey, children who just have lots of those ear infections as a child, now they're suffering from asthma later on, right? Um, so that's a big deal, right? So we've gone over two reasons why dairy causes an inflammatory response, and we've already talked about the dangers associated with it, right? And one of those reasons is the lactose intolerance. The other reason is the allergy. But the other issue here is, I can't remember if it's here. Um, the other issue here is the protein in milk. Okay. Yeah, it's on the next page. Here we go. So this is the other issue. Okay, so we already talked about the specific, like being allergic to milk itself, being unable to digest it, and this is the biggest cause for your allergies to milk, right? And it's the casein. And casein in itself isn't bad, all right? Mother's milk, when breastfeeding mothers, there's casein in their protein, right? However, the amount of casein in milk in cow's milk, dairy milk, much higher, right? So, as it says here, found in milk and other dairy products. And this is what we talked about, your body identifying things as foreign, right? So, when you get casein from cow's milk, obviously your body sees you're already introducing this foreign substance, okay, to your body that's meant for a baby cow. So now we have an issue with your body mistakenly identifying the casein as a threat. Now your body's going to trigger an immune response, an allergic reaction, an immune reaction to try to fight it off. Okay? So some of those examples can be hives, rashes, wheezing, pain. These are some of the things that you can see resulting from that casein allergy, right? So this is very common, as it says here, in infants and young children. And then we just talked about those ear infections and all the issues that young children have with having issues processing dairy milk, right? And as it says here, we just talked about the fact that mother's milk also has casein. So breastfed babies are less likely to develop that casein allergy, right? Let's see. So again, we said that we know that our milk contains it as well. Human milk contains it as well, but it's about the content associated with it in cow's milk. All right. So again, if we're talking about the reason why we have an inflammation/immune response based on consuming dairy products, one of those reasons is the fact that you're lactose intolerant. You can't process it properly. So now your body has this substance that it has nothing to do with, and it's trying to get rid of it somehow. That's an immune response, right? We also talked about allergies and seeing casein as a foreign substance. So now again, we're seeing this as something that shouldn't be there, and your body is trying to get rid of it. Now, I told y'all a second ago, remember we were talking about the fact that having issues processing this as a child is highly correlated with developing asthma later as an adult, right? So what is the big deal with this, right? So real quick, what is asthma? Okay, well, asthma is obviously, it's a condition in which your airways narrow and swell and may produce extra mucus. Not a good deal, all right? So as you see here in the image, right here, these are bronchioles, all right? Basically, they help deliver air to your lungs. And when you have an inflamed, mucus built up airway, now you're going to have a problem delivering that air into your lungs, right? So this can make breathing difficult and trigger coughing and wheezing when you breathe, and also shortness in breath. And if it's really serious, an asthma attack can result in death, right? So that's what it is, right? So some of the symptoms obviously include shortness of breath, chest tightness, trouble sleeping because you have shortness of breath, coughing. All these different things are associated with asthma and asthma attacks. So again, we're talking about dairy and how it can negatively affect those who suffer from asthma, right? So here's some of the study. And again, we're talking about As you see, this is a picture of your bronchial tubes here, your bronchus, which helps deliver air down from your trachea down into your lungs, right? So, and you can see in the image they're talking about this extra mucus buildup. So, let's see, here it is. So, first study that we're going to talk about here is the one that found that as milk protein breaks down in the stomach, it produces a substance called casomorphine, which does have opioid effects, right? This is one of the reasons why this was here. It was kind of to calm the baby down, to help the baby bond with the mother, which is a good thing, right? All right. But the opioid receptors on the mucus gland and the respiratory tract may also respond to the casomorphine from milk, which stimulates the production and secretion of mucus from these respiratory glands, right? So this is why, as it says here, there's a certain amount of people who have increased respiratory tract mucus production and asthma, and then based on their dairy in their diet, but as they get rid of that dairy, we notice that some of those symptoms, or some if not all of those symptoms, start to subside, right? Here's another example. Again, so we're talking about casein, right? Oh, not this one. We're moving on to the next one. Sorry. Yes, here it is. So even if you go to like WebMD, right, which it's nice to find basic information, right? It also supports the hypothesis that this is basically just talking about mucus buildup right here. Can be made worse with the ingestion of dairy products like milk, ice cream, and cheese, right? So again, the science is out there, the data is out there. If you know you're somebody who's asthmatic or has issues with chronic inflammation and mucus in the body, then we're going to want to avoid dairy products. Mayo Clinic here as well. Drinking milk makes the mucus thicker and more irritating to your throat than it normally would be when you have a sore throat. All right. So the thing about this is it doesn't matter if your throat is sore or not. You're still going to have more of a mucus production. Okay. We don't want, especially for asthmatics. If you're asthmatic, you definitely don't want extra mucus. Okay. Extra inflammation in your throat, aka your trachea, and also your bronchioles and your bronchi. You don't want that, because now you're going to have more of a problem with delivering air, and you already have an issue with delivering air to your lungs. Okay, so let's wrap it up. Nice, that was a quick one today. All right, so again, real quick, just for a summary before we do Q&A, main things. All right, we talked about the link between dairy and inflammation. We talked about the fact that one of the reasons why people have inflammatory responses is because they're lactose intolerant, which means they can't properly digest the milk. And now we have this foreign substance in the body, and your body doesn't know what to do with it. Now it's trying to eliminate it, thinking it's some type of pathogen, right? We said 2/3 of the population or more are lactose intolerant, all right? We also talked about allergies, specifically when it comes to casein. All right, your body sees casein, and especially in those large amounts that comes from dairy protein. It sees that as a foreign substance, and now it's saying, hey, what do I have to do to get rid of it? And we already talked about the fact that with inflammation is an immune response to fix a problem, okay? And then just lastly, we started talking about asthma and how asthma is an issue with inflammation and irritation of your airways, and that, hey, if you're eating more dairy products, you're going to add potentially more mucus into your airways, making it even harder for you to move air, and that's a problem for asthmatics. Okay, so again, the biggest thing is we want to make sure we're reducing inflammation, because what we talked about in the very beginning of this video, chronic states of inflammation can lead to numerous health problems like heart disease, arthritis, depression, Alzheimer's, and even cancer. Again, if you're having an inflammation response, that means you're having an immune response, and you don't want that to be an ongoing issue inside your body. All right, I'm done. Q&A time. Check my phone here. Oh, I love it. All right, so this question is nothing to do with dairy. Awesome. And that's the other thing. Whenever we do the Q&A, question doesn't have to be about the topic, y'all. It could be about anything. Oh, this is a good one. This question was about how Do I work on toning up my glutes? At the gym, what are some of the best exercises, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Um, well, there's a couple of easy ones. I know people are going to say, oh, you're going to go straight to squats. It's probably not the best one right off the back. I would probably start off with split squats, right? Look that one up. It kind of looks like a lunge, but you put your feet kind of in a split position, and you continue that motion on your front leg where you're working your thighs and your glutes. Split squats is a good one. Obviously, regular squats are a good one. I like bridges. Bridges are a great exercise as well. What else? What else off the top of my head are great exercises for toning the glutes? Um, I would also say step ups. Step ups are good, or if you have stairs, things like that. So that's not a difficult one to train, but stick with the split squats and the bridges and things like that. Should have some success. Okay, let's see if we got another one here. Oh, this one's on dairy. Um, oh, so what are some alternatives? Oh, you know what? I'm glad you said that because I forgot. That's why I pull up the pages I actually have to make it easy for me. Is it this one? No. Yeah. So obviously, like these are things that I consume, myself. Like almond milk. Obviously, you probably heard of that one. If you like cereal like me, or if you like cooking and baking, yeah, you're gonna want to have some type of milk on board. Use any type of vegan milk, right? Almond milk, coconut milk, cashew milk, flax milk, oat milk. There's so many different ones, right? Obviously, if you're somebody like me who likes tacos and pizza and stuff like that, you got to find a good vegan cheese that you like. So there's plenty of options. This is not a new thing anymore. The reason why you go to the store and you see the fact that there's whole sections and whole aisles and whole shelves full of non-dairy stuff that's supposed to be dairy, like ice cream and yogurt and cream and all this stuff, is because we're moving away from this stuff because the science is out. All right, the jig is up. Right now, it's taking a longer time than it has to because the dairy industry has billions of dollars. Right, so they're going to continue to do their own studies. They're going to continue to push their own narrative. But hey, at the end of the day, it's about the choices that you make as a consumer. So there are many different options. So I would just say move away from dairy products. You can have your ice cream. The best kind, my favorite is cashew. Like if it's made out of cashews, that's the same stuff I like for when I'm doing like queso, or if I'm doing any type of like cheese. Like I like cashew, right? That's my personal preference. But some people like coconut, some people like almond. It depends on your preference. So there are plenty of options. All right. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap for the day. But as always, like we said, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We have several more videos coming on this subject with dairy. Again, part 1 is in the description below, so you can check that out before or after you watch this video. And also make sure you're turning your notifications on. Follow me on Instagram at Fitness Charles, Facebook at Fitness Charles, Twitter at Fitness Charles. Visit fitnesscharles.com, read my bio, check out how you can become part of my Fit Forever family, and also see how you can try my 3 times to burn fitness program, 2 weeks for free. Yeah, be happy, be healthy, y'all. I'll check y'all out next time. Every Monday, Wednesday at 6 p.m. Central, and every Saturday